Well, hello again. I'm Aiden Haas if you don't know who I am already, which if you don't, you've been missing out. So I am sadly a senior this year. This is my last concert. So I have to pass down the torch to someone. So for two of our pieces tonight, I will have Tristan Kelsey speaking for me, and then I will speak for the last three.
Good evening, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Tristan. I go by many names. Been known for a few years by most of the band as Mullet Man. There was William Shakespeare for the musical, if you guys didn't come to that. Tonight, our band has worked really hard and we put together a great number of lists for you. Our first piece is critical mass. Critical mass is a scientific term that refers to the smallest amount of fissile material needed to sustain a nuclear chain reaction. Composer Todd Stulton embodies that concept in this piece, which begins with an explosion of sound, then launches forward through small, ever-growing melodic fragments that expand outwards and upward. Ostinati and lively, bold rhythmic statements are present throughout the work, which ends in an almost violent display of musical imagery. Thank you.
I get to introduce the student teacher, and then Tristan gets to introduce the piece, the next piece. So our student teacher Tony Lucas, comes to us from SUNY Fredonia, and he's originally from the Syracuse area, which makes it kind of interesting because he knows things like Tim Hortons, and he understands like buffalo wings and things like that. When people come from the other side of the state, it's a little bit different. He's actually a trumpet player, but you wouldn't know it based on all of the other instruments he plays. And Tristan's going to introduce his first piece.
All right, this next piece is called Aquatica. Aquatica was commissioned as a musical tribute and a remembrance of band director and superintendent Robert Gross. The intent to reflect both his enjoyment of life and water sports is depicted through meter and style changes. This piece begins with a tranquil water scene and transitions to a faster tempo that might suggest both water creatures and crafts moving playfully through the waves. The material is developed and recapitulated in a stirring way to convey the fun and adventure Gross found in his family, work, and play. We are also joined by 7th grader Bradley Niles on French horn.
Our next piece is One Life Beautiful. Julie Giroux writes, "This is dedicated to Heather Kramer-Rue for her One Life Beautiful that brought so much love and joy to everyone's lives." The title itself is a double entendre, which in one sense is referring to the person who this work is dedicated to. The other sense is a direct observation concluding that having only one life is what makes it so sacred, tragic, and so very precious. This is an impressionistic work musically describing that condition. Shakespeare's sweet sorrow, the frailty and strength of life, the meaning of what it is to truly live one life beautiful.
it's already on. Tricking me. So it's story time. So the next piece that we're going to play is going to be introduced by Aiden, and he's the guy I'm going to talk about right now. So Aiden is one of those kids that I have the advantage, I think, of having known nearly his entire life. Very, very close to it. Which means I have so many stories, and it's hard to pick one. So I decided on a personal story. When Aiden was very small, he had a couple of things he would eat. Chicken and goldfish were the staples. And my favorite story that Aiden ever told me, one day he says to me, you know, I really like chicken. I just don't like the white stuff in the middle. So he really liked breaded chicken nuggets. Also, the only other type of chicken he would eat for a while was my marinated chicken recipe, because I think the soy sauce turned the chicken the same color as the breading. So that is my Aiden story for you tonight, and now he's going to introduce the next piece, which he bullied me into playing.
I didn't bully her, I begged. So written by Stephen Schwartz, Wicked is the backstory and alternative telling of the infamous Wizard of Oz from the perspective of the Wicked Witch of the West. This arrangement includes well-known songs, No One Warns the Wicked, I'm Not That Girl, Defying Gravity, No Good Deed, and For Good. Wicked tells the story of two unlikely friends, Elphaba, the Wicked Witch of the West, and Galinda, whose name later changes to Glinda the Good Witch. Wicked's story was recently expanded in 2024 when it made its way into theaters. Highlights from Wicked.
Last story, then last piece. So there was a year where Kennedy, who was my last senior in this group, could not have band in her schedule. And so she spent, I think, every study hall here. We have shared a lot of stories that we won't share tonight, but my favorite thing was she practiced clarinet a ton with the student teacher at that time, Mr. Garcia. And the line we coined was, "It's not an oboe, you can't hold it like that." Because he would hold the clarinet up like this, and that's not what clarinet players do if you watch. So that is our inside joke, and I'll have to text him later and tell him I told that story. I wonder if he remembers. And now I'm gonna make her cry, but our next tune, Choose Joy, is a decision we all get to make.
All right, our last piece. Choose Joy is a part of Randall Standridge's Unbroken project, alongside Not Alone, that was played by the middle school band last night. The Unbroken project is just designed to create opportunities to talk about mental health through music. Choose Joy was the motto of the young lady this piece was written for. This piece connects to this project by encouraging us to all find happiness and positivity where we can. This is not to dismiss mental health conditions or dire situations, but rather a reminder that moments of joy should be treasured. We never get time back, ever, so choose joy. tonight, so I'm gonna make this real quick. It has been an honor getting to be up here and talk to you guys and play music all the time. And we have our senior recognition and our chorus concert next, so please stick around.